Hi folks, my name is Darren Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to help you understand what's going on in the war in Ukraine. I try to provide context and help you see things like why they happened, not just that they happened. Each week about this time, I do a recap of the week's events, and people tell me this is useful because it fills in the gaps of what they know or what they thought they know over the course of the week. So I'm just going to tell you the headlines and then maybe give you a little commentary, sometimes read a quote about what happened over the course of the week. So it is Monday, August 14th right now. I'm going to roll back the clock to Sunday, August 6th, and then we're just going to go Sunday to Sunday to just kind of give everything that's happened. If you like this, or if I've given you any ahas at any point, please hit the like button and think about subscribing if you want to understand more about what's going on in Ukraine. Okay, so here we go. Sunday, August 6th. Ukraine replaces the Soviet symbol with the trident. I think it's called trisub. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's about time. It's long overdue, and it's really a strong commentary on what Ukraine thinks. China supports further Ukraine peace talks after the Saudi summit last week, and that's a positive sign. I think a third party, not necessarily China, maybe India, but some outside party that is not aligned on either side could really help to work out peace talks later on. It was fascinating that after these peace talks, there's another article. Russia is to have its own peace talks with the BRIC partners. Well, that's kind of how Russia rolls. They just, well, we can do even better than you. It's like anything you can do, I can do better. It's that kind of thing coming across. Okay, U.S. sends 4 warships to up near Alaska after Russia and China patrol near Alaska. Now that's very unusual. I'm going to quote, Sullivan echoed the statements of his fellow Republican Murkowski. Murkowski is a senator from Alaska, saying, quote, the incursion by 11 Chinese and Russian warships operating together off the coast of Alaska is yet another reminder that we have entered a new era of authoritarian aggression led by the dictators in Beijing and Moscow. Now, they weren't in Alaskan waters. They were in international waters. But nonetheless, this was a poke in your eye, threatening kind of gesture. And we don't want to add more of that. Okay, Russia retaliates for the warships hit and 4 killed. So remember, the warship and last week, there was a warship and an oil tanker that were hit, and Russia is not happy about this, and they're trying to show a sign of force in order to get back at this. So there's a retaliation in total, several waves of attack from the evening of August 5th to the morning of August 6th. The enemy used 70 means of air assault weapons, according to the Ukrainian Air Force. That's retaliation for being able to actually hit what they hit in the Black Sea last week. And this was really an important thing that Ukraine was able to make that happen last week. Okay, Vivek Ramaswamy says that the U.S. is supporting Ukraine because of Hunter Biden. Okay, I'm a Republican. I do not like Ramaswamy repeating things that are not necessarily true, and he's sometimes been unfactual. I like the guy where he's right, but where he's sometimes off in left field, or he was his stance on Ukraine is really bad. Like he's going to sit down and make a deal with Putin, and that's going to go well. But that's okay. He doesn't really have much of a chance of being elected anyway. So here, there's a quote in this article. The purpose of the U.S. military is to advance American interests, to protect the homeland, not to aimlessly fight some random war that's arguably a repayment for a private bribe that a family member of the United States received. $5 million from Burisma, said Ramaswamy. Okay, that's horrible. One, let's say, even if there was some shadiness between Biden as vice president and his son and Ukraine, and that even if that was the case, Ukraine should be defended against Russia anyway. That's the bigger geopolitical picture, and he's not getting that. You ask yourself, what would Ronald Reagan do? And you answer the question right away. This aggression should not go unchecked. And by the way, Xi is paying attention to this. If the best thing to prevent Xi from wanting to go after Taiwan is to see Russia have a bloody nose and a black eye trying to take Ukraine. Okay, that's the end for Sunday. Monday, what we know on day 530, Russian helicopter was shot down near Robotny, Zaporizhia. Zelensky says that Russia will be left without ships by the end of the war. Again, we never thought that they would be hitting into the Black Sea like they are, but they're hitting in the Black Sea like they are. It's really pretty amazing to watch. It's something very, very different than what we were seeing before. He said if there's a blockade, then Ukraine must find another way to end the blockade of our waters. If Russia continues to dominate the Black Sea and blockade it by firing missiles, then Ukraine will do the same thing, which is fair defense of our capabilities. If they keep shooting, we don't have many weapons, but if they keep shooting, they may be left without ships by the end of the war. And they're making it more difficult for those that want to engage in trade with Russia. And one of the ways that you're going to cripple Russia is economically, not just militarily. This is a hybrid war, and multiple things are happening at once. According to Interfax, Russians shelled Novodanilivka, Zaporizhia region twice with chemical weapons. And I didn't see more than the one article about that, so I can't speak more to that, but that's not cool. Plot on Zelensky was revealed from a few weeks earlier, and I did an entire video on that. You can go back into my previous videos and see that. He's been targeted multiple times and has survived every attempt, and he's just got to carry on and let his security detail worry about that. Okay, Tuesday, 8 August, a new Russian textbook, Ukraine began the war with Russia, is what the new Russian history textbook was saying. Yet Ukraine started it. This is to be the history textbook with Kradasov, I'm quoting now, Kradasov justifying the imposition of only one book as being, quote, to fight the division of peoples and spreading of distrust between people. So you have only one authorized textbook for the entire country. That has a stink all over it, just that whole concept. Okay, now, number of casualties as a result of the attack on Pokrovsk increases to 81 people. I mean, they attacked a building, like a residential building, a hotel or residential complex. Ukraine is looking to defend in winter. They're already thinking through toward what's going to happen in the winter. So with heating generation, quote, 24 power units of thermal plants have also been repaired and are being repaired, which is 62% of the total. Also 70% of combined heat and plants has been repaired, and another 30 is now under repair. So I got to give them credit for thinking through this about what they're going to need to do to have heat in the winter. It's August now, and they're already thinking about what's going to be happening 5 months from now. So good on them. Okay, Pravda says that Putin terminates double taxation with Western unfriendly countries. And what he means by that is, so if you're doing business in Russia, you're paying tax there and you're paying tax somewhere else, well, it's not going to be working out. They're not going to play nice with foreign companies deemed unfriendly anymore. Pravda also talks about Ukraine destroys Russian bridges, but Russia does not respond accordingly. Okay, so they're talking about both the Crimean, the Kerchbridge, as well as the bridges connecting Zaporizhia, I think it's Zaporizhia, and Kherson, connecting those oblasts to Crimea. Those are not Russian bridges. Those are Ukrainian bridges temporarily occupied by Russia. So let's get our facts straight. But the article was saying, well, we don't respond in kind. I mean, they've destroyed bridges and we're just not doing that. Now, he's asking why they're not doing that. Like, that's the misery there. He's thinking, the author is talking about that they should, but okay, that's Pravda. EU country buys 49 Leopard tanks from an arms dealer, and most are heading to the Ukraine. Counteroffensive news is sobering. It really is. It's very, very, very slow going, and it's unfortunate, but this is where they are. It's a long slog, and having 6 months to prepare, turns out they can mine. Like, I read something this morning that was talking about every meter mined for a particular distance. That's the average of mines. They've just been sowing this for months. Okay, which also tells me that they're not planning on coming past that line. They're just trying to hold that ground. They're not trying to go back beyond that mined line either. So where the borders are is probably about what Russia plans to keep, even though it says it owns all of the real estate of Donetsk and Luhansk and Zaporizhia and Kherson. Where the lines are, I don't think they're going to try to attack the other direction. They just want to hold on. Okay. Counteroffensive news is sobering. Like I said, Russia is having a difficult time in shipping grain. So, quote, the global commodity houses are no longer helping Russia with the mechanics of trading its grain. Cargill, Louis Dreyfus, Vereda stopped such work on July 1, adding more pressure on Moscow to handle all aspects of grain deals, including transport. And what just happened in the Black Sea, where Russian ships and other ships that want to do business with Russia is only going to complicate that even more. Continuing to quote, Cargill has said that it would continue to ship grain from Russian ports. It declined to further comment. Dreyfus, Terra and ADM declined to comment, while other major international group, Bunge, did not respond to a request from comment. Nobody wants to touch this. It's like doing this business with Russia in the Black Sea is kryptonite, and they don't want to touch it. Okay, Wednesday, 9 August, Mexico opts out of an invitation, according to RT, to join the BRICS. So the BRICS, like Russia would love if Mexico became one of the BRIC countries. The BRICS are Brazil, India, Russia, China, and South Africa. Iran was just invited to the party, and it looks like Iran might join. That's going to be a wonderful club. I suppose they're going to invite North Korea soon enough. I mean, because why not? But Mexico opted out. Why? Mexico, 85% of Mexican exports go to North America, either the United States or Canada. Like, why would they forego that in order to join Russia? Russia would love if they did. It would be a thorn in the flesh of the United States, and they could work out other deals, but Mexico is not that dumb. Okay, a stalled offensive is problematic for Zelensky. He says, quote, Ukraine is tired, Russia is fearful. But it's true, a stalled offensive is much worse for Zelensky than it is for Putin. Like, think about this. All Putin really has to do is hang on. He just has to hang on and endure and try to inflict whatever damage he can endure and demoralize and that kind of thing. Zelensky needs to see progress, and he's trying in multiple ways. And I talk about this as the third offensive strategy now, counteroffensive strategy. Go look at that video if you want to understand how things have changed. I just did a video on that just a few days ago. Okay, Putin had an executive order on tourism, and I thought that was laughable. It was like, okay, if you want to cure the tourism problem, I have some suggestions, but you're going to have to kind of give up what it is. Right now, Putin's like the monkey who put his hand in the jar to get the treat, and he's now caught in the jar. Like, this is how they actually catch monkeys in some parts of the world. Like, they'll put like a banana or something in there that will, when they reach in, and as they open their hand and try to hold on to it, they can't get it back out. That's where Putin is. He really can't, like, he's got to let go of those oblasts if he wants to return to normalcy, but he's unwilling to let go of those oblasts. Okay, Putin signs a decree to prevent default payments. The way the international financial system is, they couldn't pay in rubles. They have money. Well, they're starting to run lower and lower, but they have money and they want to pay in they're supposed to pay in dollars, but they want to pay in rubles. So the decree is now to make these payments in rubles to prevent technical default. Doesn't mean that the counterparty is going to accept it, but that's their official decree from Russia. RT talks about how Erdogan is trying to restore the grain deal. Right now, while Ukraine wants to get grain out, and they're working on ways of getting grain out, it's actually more useful for Russia if they could restore this grain deal, because then it's a little harder to say it's okay to attack all the Russian shipping vessels. But right now, when Russia pulled out of this deal, it was all gloves off on the Black Sea, and Russia was not expecting what happened to happen, like that they would attack the Kerch again, attack the ships in Black Sea, and it's on like Donkey Kong. Okay, so that's that. Near Bakhmut, 140 Russians killed. This was again on Wednesday, and 232 wounded, and they're actually making progress around Bakhmut. I don't know why exactly. I don't understand the strategy. It's more of a symbolic thing from what I can detect, but again, I'm not the military expert making the call. Now, and others have talked about this, like Jake Bro and others have talked about how, like, the Russian army has really nothing to show for itself for the last 6-7 months. This time last year, they were actually making a good show of themselves in Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. Like, it was bad for Ukraine, and they were on the march. it's been Wagner that made the progress around Bakhmut, and the Russian army has not done itself a lot of good in marketing for showing that it can actually do things. Okay, Ukraine forces had crossed the Dnipro River, and in doing that, they have like a beachhead, and they're attacking. And now there's only so much they could get across the river, so we'll see how long that beachhead holds, or if they hold. But that's a less mined area, and they can actually make some progress there. Moscow claims to have shot down drones, and this was really interesting around Moscow. And then you see more attacks around Moscow to come in just a little bit. Comer has a press release. He's a member of the House of Representatives. He claims that Biden received payments from Russia, Russian, Ukrainian, and Kazakhstan companies, I think. And he shows all these things being laid out. They bought him the equivalent of a sports car, and bought Hunter Biden the equivalent of a sports car. And I think there could be some nefarious stuff there. I don't know, but I partly discount it because it's a Republican attacking a Democrat. And like I would discount a Democrat attacking a Republican. Like when a Democrat says something bad about Trump, it's like, right? When a Republican says the same thing about Trump, and he's like, already in pro-Trump kind of said and says, yeah, he really shouldn't have done that, I listen more carefully. So that's why I'm saying I discount this, because he's attacking the guy in the other party. That makes sense, right? But there could still be something there, and so you want to keep an eye on it, even if you don't want to put a lot of stock in it just yet. Okay, White House downplays a CNN poll. Most Americans do not support more money for Ukraine, and that has changed. That will change back the other direction when they get momentum in the counteroffensive, I believe. But just like it went up when Prigozhin had his Freedom March, the support for Ukraine went up pretty significantly, and right now it's at a low ebb. Russia reveals that new history book I was just talking about. This is crazy and interesting. Ukraine engineers 3D print demining boots. I did an entire video on it. It's only like 4 or 5 minutes, but yeah, they're 3D printing these boots that have a smaller footprint, and they provide extra clearance over the mines, and they actually are made of material that will break up in such a way that it won't like kill you or take off your leg, or have some kind of shieldish kindness to it. It's pretty interesting. These boots already exist, but they're 3D printing it for $400, where somewhere else it could be far more expensive. Okay, so when I was talking about the explosions, they claim to shot down drones in Moscow. Okay, we had a massive explosion at an optical plant around Moscow. Now, it's an optical plant. They make optical parts for all kinds of things, including military objects, military uses. And then there was something else that was really interesting. The local authority said it was fireworks or pyrotechnics. Somebody emailed me and said, hey, pyrotechnics, it might not mean fireworks like you think. It might just mean other blow up uses. Here's the Russian word. Here's the English translation. And it doesn't really quite line up. I don't know. I don't speak Russian, so I was just going by what was read in the English translation of Pravda, or the English, Western news, or whatever else. But nonetheless, it looks like they really somehow, I don't know if it was a careless cigarette, could have been. I don't know if it was somebody really got in and blew it up, or a drone, or what it was, but something went boom in a big way at that factory, and it was apparently creating ammunition for the Russian military. Moscow said it held fireworks, but Moscow lies so often. And if the translation is the issue, even so, they hit a armament factory. And that's important, because there's only so many armament factories within Russia, and the supplies of what they can build are dwindling. And so that's very important. Russia also says that it shot down combat drones over Moscow on the same day. Okay, Thursday, August 10th, 12 are still missing from the optical factory blast. I did a whole video. Actually, I did 2 videos about that blast. Drones in Moscow are consequences of the war in Ukraine. Yeah, I mean, like it's returning home. Like, you can't just think this is going to be a one-sided thing. It's significant. Erdogan is working on a new grain deal, and here's another article about the same things. Quote, I think Erdogan can. We know that Turkish diplomacy is working with Russian. However, we are building alternative routes for the export of wheat and other products, bypassing the Black Sea, Kuleba said. That's Dmitry Kuleba. Dmitry Kuleba. And they're working through other routes, but it would be far better to have the Black Sea grain deal reestablished if they could do that. Russia has no capacity to make new Kh-22 missiles or many other parts, like that optical plant. That was really important. They needed these kind of parts. The number of injured in Zaporizhia is up to 9 now. Pravda says that Biden makes an unexpected gift to Putin that's stopping the mining of uranium in the United States. It's a decision to stop mining uranium in Arizona. So the way it works right now is that the U.S. imports 95% of its uranium for nuclear power plants. Russia is 12% of those imports. And so they're saying, well, this is an unexpected gift to Vladimir Putin. Well, I mean, it kind of is and kind of isn't. I would say it's better to get the uranium or be able to mine the uranium within the United States if they need to, so that they're not dependent on elsewhere. But okay, it's not that big of a deal. Ukraine has taken land near Bakhmut, the heights, and they're slowly closing in on it. It's really interesting to see. And again, I don't see the strategic. I do see the symbolic value, but I don't see the strategic value of Bakhmut yet. Sanctioned Russian co-founder of Yandex, who lives in Israel, condemns the war. And I thought that was interesting. He's sanctioned. He's Russian. He lives in Israel, so he's away from, where he could get thrown out of a building very easily. His name is Arkady Volozh. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, who co-founded Yandex in Russia in 1997. He said, quote, the invasion of Ukraine is barbaric and I am categorically against it. In a statement published on Thursday, he said, I'm horrified at the fate of the people in Ukraine, many of them my personal friends and relatives whose houses are being bombed every day. Well, good on him. I don't know much more about him, but that's good. Anyone who will stand up and say this is wrong it should be counted. Okay, Friday, August 11th, 2023. Another drone attack in Moscow is suppressed. No injuries. Okay, so there's more. The hits just keep coming. And I go back and look at previous videos. I talk about all of these. The big news on Friday was that YouTube banned Scott Ritter. Now, I did a video about that. And, it was mind-numbing to me. Like, how can it possibly fall to me to defend Scott Ritter? Right? Like I've taken him on a number of videos where I was like playing him and then answering whatever he was saying, a half dozen, maybe a dozen times. But I still think YouTube shouldn't have banned him, and they shouldn't have banned him because people, like, you can look at the comments under that video and you will see people are like, well, he's telling the truth. That's why they banned him. That's exactly the problem. If you do that, you run into psychological reactance. And when that happens, people want something just because they can't have it. And they think it's like, and same thing with Trump. They built up Trump. They made Trump bigger by blocking him from Twitter. Shouldn't have done that. I understand what he's saying. I understand what he's doing. I'm saying by doing that, you created a problem. And that I'm having to defend him is that's ludicrous. Okay. Anyway, I'm moving on. Zelensky sacks military recruitment over frontline bribes scandal. So this is bad. This is bad corruption. So the commissars that are doing the recruiting have been taking bribes to not send people into the military or send them to the front line or that kind of thing. And they're cracking down on that. They're taking, okay, I'm going to quote here. This system should be run, Zelensky said, this system should be run by people who know exactly what war is and why cynicism and bribery during war is treason, he said in the video statement. Instead, soldiers who experience the front or who cannot be in the trenches because they have lost their health, lost their limbs, but have preserved their dignity and do not have cynicism are the ones that can be entrusted with the system of recruitment. So they're going to fix that. And apparently, if they want to go to the front line, they can not be prosecuted or they can, join and actually serve well rather than, wow, that's just cold. I mean, to do that in the middle of a war, that's just, yeah. Okay, RT, covered the same story, and I actually saw it on RT before I saw it in the Western press. Zelensky launched a sweeping military purge of conscription officials for corruption. Okay, South Africa backs Iran joining the BRICS. It's not official yet, but South Africa is in favor of Iran joining. Like, has your mom ever told you, like, don't hang out with so and so because they're going to be a bad influence on you, or who you are is who your friends are, or that kind of thing? Look at who Russia plays with, and then maybe you can tell something about them. Okay, Fox News says the White House wants to spend 6 times more on Ukraine than on the border, the fentanyl crisis, in a new request. Well, it is true. They do want to spend more on Ukraine, and they should spend more on Ukraine. The border, okay, I get it. I think they ought to fix what's the problem at the border. They ought to deal with that. But Democrats don't want to. Republicans want to. And so Republicans are going to constantly point to this and say, hey, we need to do this, or we need to deal with the crime in our cities. That's true, but it doesn't mean that you don't need to deal with what's going on in Ukraine. And the comparison, I get the comparison, but you still need to spend on what you need to spend on, because this is the reality of where we are. Okay, British commandos are training nearly 1,000 Ukrainian Marines, and that's really interesting. The Brits have done a great job with doing that kind of thing. Zelensky claims that he has seized the initiative in the war, and he really has, by doing these third wave counteroffensive things. Go back to that video if you want to understand what I'm talking about there. Ukraine discusses security guarantees with the UK bilaterally. They've been in talks with the United States, and they're doing that with the UK now. Saturday, August 12th. Ukraine is registering ships for passage through new corridors because they're trying to create this alternative route, in whether it's through the Black Sea or rather through the Danube, either way, to be able to get grain out. Crimea bridge appears to have been hit. We can't exactly tell if it's been hit or if there were missile attacks. I did 2 videos yesterday about that, and so you can go back and watch those. Russia vows retaliation for the attack on the bridge, but what exactly are you going to do that you haven't been doing before? Moscow drone strikes mean that Ukraine war can't be ignored, or can it? There was an article in The Guardian that, that was the title. And they said this: yes, Ukraine can strike Moscow. Everybody knows that now. But so what? The society is not going to change its attitude toward Ukraine at this point. That's it. We've reached the point of no return, said Bennett. That's what I'm trying to understand right now. Okay, so the argument there was that, so what? They're just going to say, so what? Now, Vlad Vexler was making the argument that they may be politicized if it gets worse and worse and worse. I'm not sure how they'll be politicized, pro stop the war or pro go get those Ukrainians, but it may actually have some kind of effect when it gets more significant. Russia is now hitting Ukraine with Ukrainian missiles. Okay, so these are Ukrainian missiles turned over in the 1990s. Think Budapest Memorandum kind of time, and yeah, that's pretty sad. Russia is using underage students to assemble Ukrainian or Iranian drones in a Russian factory. So they're for their work study program at this Polytechnic University in Russia's Tatarstan region. I'm quoting now: a region some 900 kilometers east. Kilometers or kilometers? I'm American. I think kilometers, right? Kilometers east of Moscow, is using manufacturing facilities that are part of a nearby special economic zone to assemble the Iranian attack drones, and are increasingly turning to underage students as laborers, many of whom often work in exploitative conditions. Keeping it classy. Okay, Sunday, August 13th, RT says a former Zelensky advisor claims that the humanizing Russians has backfired. Well, okay, I get it. I don't want anybody to be dehumanized by anybody, but I don't think that that's really what he's saying is that that's causing Russia to have excellent motivation to fight. I'm quoting that. Excellent motivation to fight? No, that's not it. RT also says Trump says his chances are close to 100%. Not sure that most Republicans even agree with that. He probably has good odds of winning the primary, but to win the general seems... That's going to be, I wouldn't hold my breath. It may not. I would bet against it at this point. Sappers need help demining the most heavily mined country in the world. That is Ukraine. It's in really bad shape. Again, something like in some areas, every meter there's a mine of some sort. Kyiv reports at least 500 children have died since the war began. 1,000 have been injured, and that's where we are. It is Sunday, the 13th of August, 2023. Thank you for staying with me and listening to this report. And if you want to know more about what's going on daily, I do these videos daily. Please subscribe and hit the bell. I'm here trying to help you stay informed. Thank you for the likes, the subscribes, coffees, and thank you more than anything for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine. I'll be back tomorrow. Hope you will be too.